Hello, welcome. My name is Melanie O'Brien, and I am the manager of the National NAGPRA program. Thank you for joining us today in this monthly webinar. This is the fifth in a series of monthly webinars, the fifth out of 10 actually. So we're halfway through the year with these webinars. Each of our webinars, if you missed any of the past webinars, are available on our events page. You can find a recording there, and a recording of this webinar will also be posted to our events page. Today, I'd like to provide you with a discussion of consultation under NAGPRA. That's the topic for today's webinar. And to do this, to provide you with a presentation, I'd like to take a little bit of a different format. You give me just a minute to share my screen. Okay, hopefully you're all familiar with and aware of the National NAGPRA Program's YouTube page, where we have a wide variety of videos that have been produced by the National NAGPRA Program or for the National NAGPRA Program in the past. In particular, I'd like to draw your attention to the NAGPRA video project. This is a series of 8 training videos that was started in 2008 and finished in 2009. And these video series are in-depth training videos on different topics under NAGPRA. The development of NAGPRA, as well as the NAGPRA overview, are both very good introductions to NAGPRA and to the history that led to the creation of this law. These are very good videos to share with a general audience who may be interested in the why of NAGPRA. Consultation under NAGPRA, which we'll be watching some clips from today, as well as decision-making under NAGPRA, are very good videos that look more in depth at the process and the practice of consultation and decision-making under NAGPRA. The other 4 videos, civil penalties, review committee, grants, and notices, are very useful, detailed videos. Although notices in particular, I will say, doesn't reflect the most recent updates to the regulations, but still provides a lot of very good, useful information. Part of my objective in sharing these videos with you today, and in particular, some segments from the consultation under NAGPRA video, is to first of all remind you that these resources exist, and that even though they were produced 14 years ago, posted 12 years ago, as you see on the screen, they still contain a lot of valuable, useful information that still applies to NAGPRA today. I will ask that you hold your questions until the end of the presentation, but we will have plenty of time today for Q&A. I've prepared 3 segments of the video for you today as a sort of background presentation on consultation. Between each of the segments, I will come back, provide a little bit additional information before moving on to the next segment. So with that, I will go ahead and start the video.
Hello, and welcome to the National NAGPRA program. My name is Sangeeta Chari, and I will be hosting this training video on consulting under NAGPRA. In this video, we will explain how the term consultation is defined under the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, or NAGPRA. We will review NAGPRA's requirements for consultation and provide you with guidelines and suggestions towards successful consultation. It is hoped that by the end of this video, we will have explained why consultation is such a critical component of NAGPRA, what to expect from consultation, when to schedule a consultation, and how to make the most of consultation. Consultation is a discussion, conference, or forum in which information and advice are provided and exchanged. Consultation consists of communication, public participation, consensus building, collaborative decision-making, and the exchange of information, knowledge, and ideas. It does not necessarily result in agreement in all issues. When consultation is conducted in a way that is mutually respectful to all parties, it can result in decisions that all parties can support.
Consultation is not actually defined in either the NAGPRA statute or in the regulations, but it's crucial to the NAGPRA process. Consultation is the process of basically informing someone what you're about to do, listening to their comments on it, and then responding to what they've said.
There is a unique nation-to-nation relationship between the United States and each Native American nation. The United States recognizes the inherent sovereign right of Indian tribes to self-government and to jurisdiction regarding tribal citizens and territory. The requirement for formal consultation with Native American governmental and religious leaders is specified in numerous laws and executive orders, including the American Indian Religious Freedom Act and NAGPRA. NAGPRA describes when consultations are to occur, what information is to be shared, and which topics are to be discussed. But consultations can do much more. Consultations provide an opportunity for museums and tribes or Native Hawaiian organizations to learn about each other, build relationships, and share knowledge. They offer opportunities for healing and reconciliation and can serve as the basis for meaningful relationships that extend well beyond the NAGPRA process.
For a successful consultation to take place, that both parties need to come, willing to hear each other's side of the situation and being open-minded, and that might not always work, but it's always a good starting place. Let's sit down, let's talk, let's hear each other out, and I like to go on that you can agree to disagree, that you're not always going to agree, but if you can start that discussion, you can move forward and you can figure out where you need to go.
Under NAGPRA, consultation is considered either face-to-face contact or phone contact. NAGPRA requires consultation to take place between museums, federal agencies, Indian tribes, and Native Hawaiian Organizations, or NHOs, as well as any individual who may be a lineal descendant or next of kin to the individuals and cultural items covered under the Act. According to NAGPRA, consultations must occur during the inventory process, after the summary process, and upon discovering human remains and or cultural items during an excavation on federal or tribal land. This is called an inadvertent discovery. First, we'll talk about inventories and summaries. Museums and federal agencies are required to consult with lineal descendants, next of kin, tribes or NHOs who are or are likely to have an interest in the human remains or cultural items in their collection. This includes tribes or NHOs that are either or once were located where the human remains or cultural items were removed. In other words, the museum or federal agency must contact a tribe regardless of where they are located today, as long as they are or are likely to have an interest in the human remains or associated funerary objects. Consultation may be initiated with a letter, but should be followed up by a telephone or face-to-face dialogue with the appropriate representative of the tribe or NHO. A letter to an individual, tribe, or NHO regarding potentially affiliated human remains or cultural items does not constitute a consultation. Consultation requires interpersonal communication. Identifying the tribe or tribes and Native Hawaiian organizations to include in consultation is the first task. To do this, start by consulting with tribes and NHOs you do know and ask them about other tribes or NHOs that should be included. The National NAGPRA program website has helpful maps of tribes by Aboriginal areas and a database of NAGPRA contacts for tribes and NHOs. The Bureau of Indian Affairs also has lists of tribes that are recognized by the federal government and the Administration for Native Americans. The National Museum of the American Indian and other federal agencies may have information on affiliated tribes, intertribal coalitions, and regional organizations. State historic preservation offices may have lists of tribes and contact people for tribes and other groups having interests in their state. The timing for initiating consultation differs for inventories and summaries. For inventories, consultation starts at the beginning of the process, when a museum or federal agency begins to look at affiliating individuals or associated funerary objects in their collection. Once a museum or federal agency determines who they believe could have an interest in the individuals or associated funerary objects in their collection, they must provide the following information in writing to those lineal descendants, next of kin, tribal or NHO representatives. A list of all Indian tribes and NHOs that are or have been consulted regarding the particular human remains and associated funerary objects. A general description of the inventory that includes information such as where the individuals or objects came from, their age, how they came into their collections, etc. The projected time frame for conducting the inventory, and an indication that additional documentation used to identify cultural affiliation will be supplied upon request. This information is then used to come to a cultural affiliation decision. The consultation timing is different for summaries. With summaries, the consultation process begins after the museum or federal agency completes the summary process. Museums or federal agencies must send potentially affiliated individuals, tribes, and NHOs their summaries. It is then the individual, tribe, or NHO's decision to initiate consultation by notifying the museum or federal agency that they are interested in an item in the summary. During the consultation, museum and federal agency officials must provide copies of the summary if they have not already done so. In addition, they must provide, when requested, access to records, catalogs, relevant studies, or other pertinent data for the limited purposes of determining the geographic origin, cultural affiliation, and basic facts surrounding the summary objects. Access to this information may be requested at any time and must be provided in a reasonable manner that is agreed upon by all parties. However, the law does not require copies be made of these documents. Oftentimes, the result of a consultation on an item or items in the summary is a notice of intent to repatriate. When conducting consultations regarding inventories or summaries, museums and federal agencies may request information from the tribes as appropriate. This includes the name and address of the tribe or NHO's representative to the consultation, suggestions for ways to ensure a successful consultation, including the names and appropriate methods for contacting affiliated lineal descendants and/or religious leaders who are to be consulted, and, if it is a summary consultation, the kinds of cultural items that the tribe or NHO considers to be funerary objects, sacred objects, or objects of cultural patrimony. Or, if it is an inventory consultation, the kinds of objects that the tribe or NHO reasonably believes to have been made exclusively for the funerary process or to contain human remains. Many of the same consultation principles that apply to consultations regarding collections apply to discoveries on federal or tribal land after November 6.
Well, that concludes the first of the 3 segments that I wanted to share with you today. I hope that you found that beneficial. And again, I would encourage you to review the entire video, as well as other videos in the series that you might have an interest in. I did want to provide just a little bit of additional information, updates based on that clip. The first being that the revised regulations have added a definition for consultation, but that definition builds off of the information provided in the video and builds off the way that consultation was described in the video. The specific definition for consultation under the new revised regulations is that consultation means the exchange of information, open discussion, and joint deliberations made between all parties in good faith and in order to seek, discuss, and consider the views of all parties, strive for consensus, agreement, or mutually acceptable alternatives, and enable meaningful consideration of Native American traditional knowledge of lineal descendants, Indian tribes, and Native Hawaiian organizations. In terms of the way that consultation is conducted, in addition to the letters that were described in the video, as well as telephone and face-to-face meetings, of course, email and video conferencing are adequate ways of providing interpersonal communication that is required by consultation. In the video, there were a number of contacts that were provided, website addresses. Those are still valid and useful resources for identifying consulting parties. We have a list of those links on our website under the consultation resource page, and I'll share that in the chat. Lastly, one of the biggest changes in the video that actually no longer applies is the very last part about providing, during consultation, having Indian tribes or Native Hawaiian organizations provide information on the kinds of objects that might be funerary objects or sacred objects or objects of cultural patrimony. That was the last 2 slides that were shown about information that museums and federal agencies can request during consultation. That specific requirement that was in the previous regulations has been removed from the revised regulations to ensure that there's no requirement in the regulations for any information that could be potentially sensitive to be recorded as a part of the consultation process. As you may be aware, consultation involves sharing what can sometimes be very sensitive information. And in no way did we want the regulations to imply that sensitive information must be shared, and certainly that it must be shared in writing. So we've removed those requirements in the revised regulation so that there's no obligation for an Indian tribe or NHO to provide written information about the kinds of objects that may fit in NAGPRA category. Okay, I have another clip that I'd like to share with you. You'll give me just a minute to get it started.
Please refer to 43 CFR 10 for complete details of NAGPRA's consultation requirements. Now that we have reviewed the legal legal requirements of NAGPRA, let's spend some time discussing the goals of consultation. Why did proponents of NAGPRA emphasize the need for consultation? NAGPRA was passed in 1990 because of the need to correct historical injustice regarding the treatment of Native American human remains and cultural items. Prior to the passage of NAGPRA, tribes and NHOs had little legal recourse to repatriate ancestors or cultural items. The fundamental basis of required consultation is an acknowledgement of tribal sovereignty. It is the recognition that the federal-tribal relationship is a nation-to-nation relationship, and that while landowners or repositories may have possession of human remains and cultural items, the tribes, NHOs, and descendants have a personal and communal interest that is prior and paramount and must be respected. A collaborative consultation process based on dialogue and the mutual exchange of knowledge and ideas can produce positive results for all parties that it can extend well beyond the specific circumstances that brought the parties together in the first place.
In 1999, the R.S. Peabody Museum associated with the Phillips Academy in Andover, Massachusetts, began consultation meetings with the Pueblo of Jemez. They ended up repatriating the human remains to the Pueblo of Jemez, and those human remains were reburied at Pecos National Historical Park. Also included in that group of human remains were remains from the George Peabody Museum associated with Harvard, the State of New Mexico, and the Maxwell Museum associated with the University of New Mexico. So there was approximately 2,000 individuals reburied in May of 1999 at Pecos.
The tribal leaders from the different prospective tribes got together and they sat down. They said, this is the right thing to do. The goal in the end was to bring back home the human remains and to reinter them back in the ground. You know, why all this fighting, you know? It's a time of celebration. We're getting our ancestors back home, and let's put aside our disputes and do the right thing for all the prospective tribes.
The remains were reinterred, and some of the objects. But the vast majority of the objects, I think we're probably talking close to 98% of everything Kidder excavated that was subject to the law, basically stayed exactly where they are. And the Pueblo decided to sign long-term curation agreements with the Peabody Museum in Andover and with the National Park Service so that those objects could be used for educational purposes and to celebrate how fabulous Pecos Jemez culture has been over the last 500 to 1,000 years.
Pecos National Park is an excellent example of what can result when a consultation is done well. So what do museums, tribes, and NHOs need to do to ensure a successful consultation? The most important thing to remember is that consultation is a process. It takes time, resources, preparation, and a great deal of mutual exchange and a commitment to the goals of NAGPRA. The better prepared the parties are before the first consultation meeting, the smoother and more productive the visit. Here are some insights to best practices for consultation.
I would advise any museum who is going into consultation to first do more than send a letter. NAGPRA requires that the museum send a letter and also do more than that. And a lot of times the museums fail right off the bat by just sending a letter and expecting a response.
One of the best advice I can give is to show respect. Show respect for that tribe, and I would even encourage doing a little history on the visiting tribes that's coming to your museum. Go out and find information of where they're coming from, their geographic area, their traditions, and also their historical homelands will help, because when you come in and consult with tribes, you have to have great respect for them, and respect carries a strong bond in relations to respecting one another through tribal and government relations. It's very important, and respect's going to carry them far beyond anything written as far as protocol and how you're going to consult with that tribe.
Good preparation is a key to successful consultation. So what happens when a tribe receives a request to consult? Every tribe or NHO's NAGPRA program is structured differently, depending on a variety of factors, including size, resources, staff, and priorities. However, when a tribe or NHO receives a summary or a request to consult, it initiates a series of activities, including research, meetings with people involved with repatriation, and information gathering. Museums and federal agencies should remember to be patient, as the size and commitments of the cultural staff will determine how quickly they can respond to a request to consult.
If I'm working for a museum or federal agency and wanted to consult on these collections, which I hate using the word collections again, which, we know that story, but is to say, make an effort to build a relationship with the tribes you're working with. Maybe making contact at least once every couple of weeks, or once a week, or, how long does it take to send an email, or make a phone call, leave a message to say, checking up, how's things going. Those little things like that do make a difference.
And then if you make contact with the staff, the NAGPRA staff or the preservation staff, regardless of what tribe, what agency or museums has made contact with the tribe, remember there's a tribal chair or a governor or a chief of the tribe. And out of respect for that individual, send a letter to that individual and CC their staff and ask that there be consultation with their staff, and that if there's any questions they have, feel free to contact us and provide email and address, and let them know that we're open to discuss any of these issues that we're wanting to consult with you about, so that the tribal chair will know, and that respect is built there at the top, because it is a government-to-government relationship.
Along with good preparation is regular communication. All parties should work together to determine the goals and expectations of the meeting, share concerns, and ask questions of each other. It is a good idea to develop the meeting agenda together. Museums and federal agencies should consider asking the following. Who will participate in the consultation? Do they have any special needs? What would they like to do while they are at the museum? What are the tribes or NHO's goals for the meeting? Would they like to use photography in the collections? Would they like to conduct any special ceremonies? If so, is there anything the museum should be aware of, such as the need to use fire or water or natural products? Are there any barriers to the tribe or NHO coming to the consultation, such as cost, transportation, or housing? Is there a way that the museum can help? Likewise, tribes should ask questions and inform the museum or federal agency of any special requests prior to the consultation in order to allow staff to properly prepare for the visit. This could include requests for time to view and discuss the collection, any special requirements for ceremonies, any special requirements for elders or other people traveling to the consultation, requests for additional information regarding the human remains or cultural items to be discussed in the consultation, suggestions for ensuring a successful consultation visit.
We try to bring elders in as much as we can. now our elders are getting so old, our main one, and he is our main consultant. And we do have consultants as part of our repatriation program, along with the specialists, who are the people who do the ceremonial part at the reburials and so on.
NAGPRA
Well, I don't have very much to add to that or to correct in that segment. All of it is still very much accurate and very much useful information. Certainly, I anticipate many of you will want to see the text of those slides that were shared, and certainly the list of questions and information to be shared ahead of consultation. And we will be sure that we share that text. It will likely be in a document as opposed to a PowerPoint presentation, but we'll certainly be able to provide that text along with the recording of this video. I have one more segment that I'd like to share with you. I hope that you find this very useful and helpful information. As I said, it continues to be very accurate and very useful.
And communication can start.
Okay. Sorry, it's a lot to juggle here.
The day finally arrives and the consultation is about to begin. What are the elements of a good consultation? Every meeting is different depending on the size and scope of the meeting. However, a typical meeting will have the following elements: special ceremonies, introductions, food and drink, especially if elders come, explanations of the museum's protocols around the collections, explanations of the Native traditional protocols around human remains and cultural items, time to view the collections, time to discuss cultural affiliation, a discussion regarding next steps.
I think, first of all, is being prepared. So we provide information to tribes about lodging and maps of downtown Denver and places to eat, as well, of course, as well as information about our collections and what we'll be looking at. Secondly, we try to get all the key players at the institution involved. We have a NAGPRA team here that consists of members representing different departments at the institution. We try to bring everyone on those consultations. We provide materials at the consultations, written materials concerning our collections for tribes to look at. We organize, one thing that we've done in the past year is that we've organized our ethnographic collections by tribe, so that when tribes are actually accessing the collections, they can view all those objects together. A lot of museums will sort objects by like type, like all the baskets together or all the pottery together. And we found for consultations it really helped to keep them together, organized by tribe.
Again, consultations take time and may involve multiple meetings, phone calls, and email communications. The consultation does not end once the parties agree on the cultural affiliation of the human remains or cultural items. The museum or federal agency may conclude its inventory and publish a notice of inventory completion, or agree to repatriate a cultural item and publish a notice of intent to repatriate. There may be further consultation on the transfer of possession to complete repatriation. Keep in mind that every consultation may build on prior consultation efforts. What is important is that the consultation process produces results that all parties can agree to. In this video, we have focused on in-person consultations. However, I would encourage you to be creative as you consider how to conduct consultations. Museums have used a variety of creative methods to share information and consult, including video conferencing, phone consultations using digital images of items, or meetings with coalitions. As long as the tribes or NHOs and museum or agency agree that the goals of the consultation can be met, the method for conducting the consultation can vary. I encourage you to talk to other museums, federal agencies, and Native nations. See what methods they have used and determine what makes the best sense for your Native nation, NHO, museum, or federal agency. Now, let's take a few minutes to discuss a few specific issues related to consultations. First, what differences exist between consulting with Indian tribes and Native Hawaiian organizations? The situation for Native Hawaiian organizations differs from tribes, including Alaska Native villages and corporations, because Native Hawaiian organizations do not have reservations and do not have specific governing structure. However, NAGPRA provides a definition of a Native Hawaiian organization. NAGPRA also states that this definition includes the Office of Hawaiian Affairs and Hui Malama. In addition to these organizations, there are also island burial committees and organizations that represent families or ohanas. These are self-appointed and organized and may change over time. Those museums or agencies wishing to consult on Native Hawaiian human remains or cultural items should refer to the National NAGPRA Program, Native American Consultation Database, for published notices of NHOs from prior consultations. Contact the Department of Interior, Hawaiian Liaison for its list of NHOs. The Office of Hawaiian Affairs and the Hawaii State Historic Preservation Office are also good sources of information.
Native Hawaiians have under NAGPRA, it's really tricky because, unlike Indian tribes and Alaska Native corporations, we don't have a recognized entity that governs us all. And as a result, like for an Indian tribe, you can only receive one claim, and that's from the tribe. But with Native Hawaiians, you can receive multiple claims because you have multiple organizations. And so the real challenge isn't a result of NAGPRA. It's a result of the state of affairs of Native Hawaiians.
Another special circumstance is working with non-federally recognized Indian groups. Museums can affiliate human remains and cultural items in their collection to these groups. A museum can consult with the groups either individually or as part of a coalition with other federally recognized tribes. Consultations are a pivotal element of NAGPRA. When all parties work together in the spirit of mutual cooperation and respect, it can clarify issues, build on the body of knowledge for all parties, and be the basis for long-term relationships between tribes and museums that extend well past the goals of the consultation. I hope that this video provides you with tools you need to begin your consultation. Be sure to contact the National NAGPRA program if you have any further questions or concerns regarding the consultation process. Thank you.
I guess I want to say thank you to Congress for giving us NAGPRA. And I say it in a weird way because I say it laughing like that because there is criticism in Indian country of NAGPRA. But and although I will sit here and tell you about the 123,000 sets of ancestral remains that haven't come home and this work that needs to be done, I can also tell you about the other sets of remains that have come home. And so, and setting this process into place.
I think it's humbled me a lot because I had a lot of assumptions about what I thought I knew as an archaeologist and as a scientist and as a woman. And it has humbled me. I've been privileged to take part in events that I never would have imagined taking part in. And I've built some deep, lasting friendships, and it's really helped me to gain empathy for understanding belief systems that are not my own. And that's what's really, I think, important in a struggle with this, is that I've heard so many times people say, well, what's the big deal? If it were my grandmother, I wouldn't care. Well, the big deal is it's not your grandmother, it's someone else's grandmother, and they do care. You know, and so I think building empathy and cross-cultural understanding has been pretty pivotal for me.
The last reburial I did was January. We just got the remains back. And it was from a disposition. And I was like, oh man, I don't want to have these hanging out in my office all winter, you know? So I got my snowshoes on and threw them on my back, you know, and I had the shovel and I was like trekking through the woods, and it's like, I hope the ground's unfroze. If not, I'm gonna have to start a fire. But luckily I started digging and the ground was unfrozen. You know, it's just like, cool, you know, you feel really good. You know, you're reburying, and the remains were all kids, you know, just like little itty bitty skulls and just little guys, you know, and they're from right down where I grew up in Mackinac City, which is like 20 miles from Cross Village. So this is like real personal. And it's like felt really good, you know, it's like I did something good today. You know, it's just like something I can be proud of. I call my mom and she's all happy, and tell other people. I was like, oh, that's a good thing. So.
Well, I hope that you found that to be a helpful segment of the video. Again, all of these videos in full are available on the NAGPRA program's website. With that segment of the video, I'll just provide two clarifications or updates. The first being the reference to non-federally recognized Indian groups. Certainly consultation with non-federally recognized groups is allowable under NAGPRA. It is not required under NAGPRA, but it is an option, and a museum can certainly consult with any party that they wish to consult with. There has been a change in the revised regulations for how non-federally recognized Indian groups can achieve repatriation. And that is only through working with a federally recognized tribe or working with the museum on a reburial, a museum or a federal agency on a reburial. And we'll go into more conversation about that at a future webinar. I also wanted to provide some update on the contact information that was provided. Certainly in the very last screen, we have moved offices since that time, but most of our contact information remains the same. Our phone number here at the National NAGPRA program has been the same since very early on. And we have additional information on our website with contact information for our office, but certainly for other ways of getting in touch with NAGPRA practitioners, as well as an updated list of Native Hawaiian organizations that was referred to in the video. I'll just take the opportunity to share again another resource on our YouTube channel are these 7 videos, which were just posted about a year ago, that have 2 videos about consultation, one video about consultation in virtual setting, and another one about NAGPRA consultation in general. These videos were done in partnership with the National Preservation Institute in 2022, and again, provide useful information on consultation as well as other topics, as you can see here. Again, you can get to all of these from the National NAGPRA program YouTube channel. With that, we will turn it to time for questions and answers. To do this part of the webinar. I am going to turn the mic over to a reporter who's in the field today for answering questions. Melanie?